Hi, Chico Sharks. It's Mrs. Dersham. I hope that everyone is doing well. I'm looking forward to continuing our writing work. And last week, we really spent a lot of time looking at the different elements in a persuasive text. We talked about claims, we talked about reasons, and we talked about evidence. Today, we're going to be continuing on our persuasive writing journey, but we're going to be focusing in on different sources. So last week, we used a type of source that's called a secondary source. And today, we're going to start working on a primary source. So one of the things that the goal of today is that by the end of the lesson, I want you to be able to say, I know the difference between a primary and secondary source, and I can use both of them to support my position or claim on an issue. So that's what you should be able to do by the end of our lesson today. Looking at the two kinds of sources, this should sound very familiar because this should be a review from earlier in the year. In social studies, we talked about primary and secondary sources. A primary source, it says these are original documents or research. Examples, diaries, interviews, speeches, academic research, fiction, surveys. A secondary source, these are works that synthesize, summarize, and or interpret primary sources. So these are writing pieces that are created by people who are not actually there. They gather a whole bunch of information and then they write it. So encyclopedias, history books, textbooks, magazine articles, biographies. So secondary sources are something that we have been using when we read Should There Be Zoos? And you look through the information and you take notes and you pull out facts and details. That is a secondary source. When you write an argument, it's really important that you have different kinds of sources. It really helps to make your argument much more firm or strong. And so today we're going to start looking at a primary source that we can use to incorporate into our writing and research. So one of the things we're going to start doing today is we're going to come up with, we're going to start a survey. And you're going to have an opportunity to survey people in your family. You're going to be able to make phone calls to friends, and you're going to be asking specific questions. But the questions are going to be questions that you write. And those questions are going to support your claim. So I want to show you that whether you have the yes slide or if you're in favor of zoos or against zoos, that the question is the same. So the overall topic question, should there be zoos? So I have that on my yes slide, and I also have that here on my no slide. It says we're going to be writing questions about their opinions about your reasons. So we're going to ask them questions using your reasons from your research. So when I look at my reasons, I believe this was the first slide in your graphic organizer. I have two here that we did earlier in the week that support zoos. One of them says animals are endangered or extinct due to the growth of our human population. I have to take that reason because that supports my claim, and I have to reword it in a question form. But when I reword it, I have to make sure that the answer is yes or no, or it has to be agree or disagree. This is not a response where you're asking people for their opinions. You're simply asking them yes or no questions. So I'm going to take this idea and you can do the same thing from yours. I'm going to copy it and then I'm going to insert it. But I haven't finished my job because I need to turn this into a question. Do you think animals are endangered or extinct due to the growth of I'm going to write due to the growing population of humans. So I took the same idea and I just put it into a question. I'm going to do the same thing with the next question. Here's my reason. Captive breeding is a strategy that increases endangered animal populations through reproduction. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to insert. I'm going to change it into a yes/no question. Captive breeding, I'm going to change it to, I jotted down some notes, is captive breeding a good strategy for increasing endangered animal populations? So you can see that as I write this question, the response that someone could give me if I were to ask you, is captive breeding a good strategy for increasing endangered animal populations? Your response would be yes, or it would be no. You only have two choices that you could give. So I'm going to continue using the rest of the reasons that you have selected. Remember, you should have 3 to 5 different reasons, so you have to continue this work on your slide today for creating those survey questions. For my no group, I'm going to go through the same process, but I'm going to do it a little quicker. Okay, I'm going to copy. Here's my zoochosis. I'm going to, come on. Here I'm going to say, zoochosis is a mental illness found in animals who live in captivity. Do you think this is a problem? That's an example of taking a statement and turning it into a question. At the answer or the response that I'm going to get from those who I survey, it's going to be a yes or a no. Before you're done today, you must have 3 to 5 questions. Now, moving forward, tomorrow, your assignment, you're not going to have a lesson to watch, but you are going to perform the survey. So you are going to pull up the next slide that looks like this, and you're going to go through and you're going to ask the first question to the first person that you're interviewing. So you're going to talk to mom, you're going to talk to dad, you're going to talk to big brother or big sister, maybe little brother or little sister. Might be too hard for them. You're going to call a cousin on the phone. You're going to scream across the road to a neighbor and ask them questions. You can going to be reaching out and asking, I'd say 5 to 10 people. Okay, try to reach as many people as you can. And you're going to go through and ask them your questions. As you ask them your questions, you're going to write their responses. So I would ask my first question. Let's say I talk to Mr. Dersham. Do you think animals are endangered or extinct because of the growing human population? And he would say, well, Mrs. Dersham, I actually believe that is true. So yes, I do think that's a problem. So I'm going to come over here. Come on. And I'm going to write yes, because his response was, yes, it's a problem. And I'm going to ask him the next question. I'm going to say, Mr. Dersham, is captive breeding a good strategy for increasing endangered animal populations? well, he might say, yeah, I agree with that too. So I would write yes. I might ask him another question and he'll say, no, I don't believe that's correct. So I'm just jotting down for each person that I ask. So here's Mr. Dersham, and I'm going to ask him all the questions that I've written. And then I'm going to go to the next person. I'm going to ask the next person the same questions. And I'm going to write I'm going to record their responses here. So I'm going to be filling my chart with lots of yeses and lots of nos. Then tomorrow, after you're done surveying people and completing your chart, whether you are in favor of zoos or you are against zoos, as soon as you're done surveying, then you're going to come down to the bottom and you're going to analyze the results. To analyze the results, you're going to follow the directions. What kinds of things do you notice? What are you observing about the responses? How did most people respond? Were there any patterns in the responses based on what you asked? Are there any reasons that have stronger support for your position than others? You're going to want to pull out the pieces of support or the questions that have the most support. And you're going to want to use those as part of your research or evidence to support your reasons for being in favor of zoos or against zoos. So this is going to be another piece of information that you can use to support your position. So down at the bottom here, you're going to write maybe 2 or 3 sentences, figuring out what questions supported, what questions received the most support. And you're going to analyze it and you're going to write a sentence or 2 about it. Okay? So that is tomorrow. Today, your assignment is to write the questions. Tomorrow, your assignment is to survey family and friends and analyze it. I hope that you feel really good about understanding that there are different sources, primary and secondary sources, that we use to help support our position and our claim. That is the goal for today. Have fun writing, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.